Her daughter was such a little diva, she thought, as she picked up the tube of gloss and swiped it over Leah's tiny pursed lips. "All set? You look beautiful." "I know," Leah said with confidence that never ceased to amaze her. "So do you, Mommy." "Thank you, honey." Smiling, Aurora reached out and tugged on Leah's long blonde hair that was still damp from her bath. It curled around her adorable face. Aurora saw her own features in her daughter's smaller ones, but she also caught glimpses of Leah's father in her child, at least in the unique indigo color of his eyes. It had been a sizzling Florida summer. Nick had been visiting a friend who lived in Miami Beach. It had been the same day Aurora had turned 18 and aged out of foster care. She'd had nowhere to go except the diner where she worked, and had been lucky the owners had allowed her to stay in the back room. While serving tables that afternoon, she'd met Nick. They'd exchanged first names only, and they had spent one night together. It had been incredible, and enough to result in her getting pregnant. But at the time, the hours she'd spent with Nick on the beach and later in his hotel room had been an unexpected and pleasurable escape from the painful reality of her life. As usual, when she thought of her daughter's father, a pang of regret hit her hard. Without Nick's last name, she'd had no way to find him once she'd discovered she was pregnant.
Beside him stood a blonde woman with a knockout body in a gorgeous, fitted gown. A surge of awareness rippled through him, but it wasn't one of simple attraction, though he was definitely drawn to her. It was something more. He continued to stare until, as if sensing the weight of his gaze, she turned her head. Her eyes widened, and he realized he'd been right. What he'd felt was a renewed connection with the only woman with whom he'd experienced something real. He might have been young then, but he'd known. He was halfway across the room before he registered that he'd moved. Though people blocked his way, he managed to catch sight of her rushing out the double doors. So he followed. He reached the hallway just as she disappeared into the ladies' room. He had no doubt she'd recognized him, but he didn't understand why she'd run. They'd had one amazing night together. Why would that freak her out now? Determined to get an answer, he propped himself against the wall outside the bathroom door and settled in to wait. Aurora, no last names needed, had gotten away from him once before. He wasn't about to let it happen again.